I'm going to start with Turkish and then we'll switch to English. Arkadaşlar hoş geldiniz. Night. Dışarıdaki bekleyen insanları da içeriye alalım. Ve 2 dakika geç kaldık. Kusura bakmayın, mikrofon sıkıntımız oldu. Bugün Sherkhan bizlerle olacak. I'm going to switch to English. So, thank you so much for everyone. And we are together with Sherkhan from Property Finder. And he gonna present to us with for 10 multiple engineers. And I'm giving the microphone to him.
Cool. So, hello everyone. As was said, I'm Sherkhan, engineering lead from Property Finder. Here are a big team supporting me, thanks to them. We're gonna talk today about how to scale in organizations and how to help engineers to grow together, having a lot of teams. And at the same time, if you're in a smaller company, you still will be able to apply some hints that we're going to share today. But before we're going to start, I would like to know audience a little bit more. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and I'll need you to raise your hands if it's related to you. So how many of you are students now? Please raise your hand. Okay, we have about 20% of you. How many of you are backend developers? Whoa, that's interesting. Are there any DevOps guys? What? I remember you? Cool. So you got a very relative audience. So before we start, let me share a little bit about the company. As I said, I'm from Property Finder. Property Finder is company something similar to sahnede, which is a real estate PropTech company. More bigger brand will be Airbnb, even though we're not as close to them. It's still a PropTech. So we have what we do. We basically match people who try to find their homes, rent or sell, mainly in Middle East. So we operate in 5 markets: UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Egypt, and Saudi. We have slightly over 100 engineers, or maybe 110, 120, and it's a lot. I mean, last year we've been somewhere around 60 plus engineers, doubling in engineering teams. It's a huge step for the company, and when you do such things as let's say CTO or higher management, you need to have a plan. How are you going to scale your organization in such a way that everybody can productively work? That's why the platform is born. And hello, cat. And as we have 7 different products, we have mobile app and web app where people go and find their homes. We also have several apps for our clients who are mainly real estate agencies. We help them to maximize their profits and kind of either sell the properties or rent properties. So that's like in general what Property Finder does. Talking about the scale in Property Finder, technical obviously, we process 7+ million images per day, which is, I'd say, a huge amount on a daily basis. We have 100+ terabytes of data, if not more. As I said, we scale the engineering team, which naturally scales the amount of services and amount of data we process. We have 3,000+ containers on AWS. Usually you do scale your applications for 2 to 3 replicas, so we can say we have several, almost 100 services as per 110+ databases, and saying about requests per second or load in general, we hit about 1.3 billion hits per month. Talking about the stack in Property Finder. So we have a lot that we support because we are urban tech company who tries a lot of different stuff, even though we have like a classic stack for a web service. So we're slowly moving. We have a couple of monolithic applications in PHP which are either mostly or partially migrated to Golang services, and Golang today in Property Finder is the first backend language. And when we're going to speak about the platform, platform mainly built in Golang for Golang developers and for building Golang services. Other than that, we have front-end applications built in React and Next.js when SSL is required. We deploy it to the AWS. We have managed Kubernetes. Somewhere here and there we have Node.js. We use Elasticsearch for our search. And as you see, MySQL is our main database. Sometimes we use MongoDB. Redis for cache. We also use Memcache, RabbitMQ, Android, Kotlin, iOS, Swift. Datadog is our main source, our main service for handling reliability, tracing, logging, and Snowflake is our data lake. So, before we're going to speak about what is a platform, let me ask a couple of you, what in your mind do you think is a platform? Raise your hand if you want to answer. No with him? Okay, I'll answer then. So, platform is a very right term, and you can think about platform as something stable, let's say, or something that can help you to build your services. But to truly understand the platform, you need to understand the goal of it. And I'd say the goal of the platform is to help developers focus mainly on business-related code. What does it mean? It means when you, let's say, want to start a new service or a new application, you don't really need to think about how do you log as anybody else do, or how do you trace as everybody else do, or how to deploy. It's something that should be handled for you, and it's something that AWS, for example, tries to solve for us, providing different services, but we, as a company in Property Finder, took a step further and decided to do a customization that is relevant to us or several different solutions that are provided in the market. So for us, platform is a combination of dev, which is development and development experience, ops, which is operations, administration, deployment, SRE, which is service reliability, and we really take seriously service reliability. Actually, if you think about service reliability in general, which is based in the base, it's just logging, tracing, having a transparent picture of your cluster. You can continuously improve SRE up to extreme points where you can even optimize the network layers of your data centers, where we maybe count at one data. So platform as a service, though, is not a new idea. It's not something that was invented by Property Finder. It's came from maybe good old days here and there. The DevOps is the, let's say, the seed of the idea. So we do have a team that provides tooling and some automation around infrastructure that helps us either deploy faster or handle trace and logs and all service-related stuff in a better way. But if we take it to the very initial point, I'd say if we have some senior devs among you guys, or even middle developers, you probably are in some sort of a way a platform developer. If you ever build any sort of a library, or you had an idea where you want to build something that
which is how busy. So, you know about like other orders. Good you probably developed in the ship in your say Houston. Because you started on some well and you know what I care using what for me both languages and such the still I have to see dealing so like somebody so literally but didn't know what people would do.
Thanks. Yeah. So I was building libraries during my career in several companies, and it was some initial steps towards baby steps towards a real platform, and yeah, that was my dream, and the dream came true in Property Finder. So, what challenges we had? Why did we need to do a platform? We had big problems around provisioning a new service with resources like MySQL database, which could take a DevOps team from several days up to 2 weeks. And as I said, when you doubled your engineering resource, it can be a bottleneck, and that's what we've seen actually. That was the main reason why we wanted to start a platform. But other than that, we had several issues limitations around SRE. One of it was tracing was configured for 10 to 15, maybe 20% of services, which is not great because when you operate in service-oriented environment, it's really hard to say when somewhere in the middle of the request chain breaks and you just have no idea. Every service had a custom logger setup, not every service connected logger to a tracing, and that's also like a very big loss in terms of traceability, because when you have a connected logger to a tracing provider, you can basically see what log related to what requests, which is very beneficial when you try to debug something or you have an incident. Every service has a custom CI/CD setup, and not every service had tests and linters, let's say, or even import revisers for Golang mainly, and we developed a unified CI/CD within the platform solutions to have one flow how we basically continuously integrate and continuously deploy our services. SLO was also a new thing for us. When I just came, we started speaking about it. If you don't know what SLO is, it's service level objective. Basically, if we speak about the real world, let's say you are a bank and you have some objective to yourself, how much cash you need to have in each bank branch. So providing a good service to people is in a measurable digits, let's say. It's basically your objective. For us, it's number of successful requests. So by default, 99.9% of requests should be served successfully, and that's our baseline of the SOL, which was not in place before. But other than that, those are purely technical challenges. Again, coming back to the scaling of the engineering resource, you will face some business issues as well. My favorite one, Sonic BPM. You probably faced a situation when your product or project manager was kind of frustrated or even angry that you do not deliver on time, but you're at the same time frustrated because you just spent like 2-3 days setting up some tests or the deployment charts, and everybody is just frustrated, but nobody took seriously the question, why do we need to spend so much time on that purely technical stuff? and could we do it better? That probably we had the same question, so we said, can we just solve all that technical setup questions for everybody? I mean, for every engineer in the company, at least for the backend? And we said yes. So we don't have Sonic's the PMs, most of our PMs have them. Also, as I mentioned, and this is a good point for more mature, let's say, technical managers, you should apply different approaches when you have a small team. Let's say when you have a startup, you probably don't need such unification of your tech stack and tech solutions, but when you want to go and build an army, it's a very different journey, and you need to proactively prepare yourself and prepare your company to have an army of engineers. And at the same time, it's a talent acquisition. I mean, once I'll describe our platform and you'll understand everything we have, you'll be surprised how many companies do not have it. And I'd say maybe just a couple of companies. I work in Dubai, so maybe just a couple of companies in Dubai, in general in Middle East, have a platform as a thing. Our developers are also happy. They mostly work with the Golang. And I doubt that they will be, I mean, I'm being like an evil manager right now, but I doubt that it will be easy for them to find such a good environment in terms of developer experience anywhere else. At the same time, they can share with their peers or with friends from other companies, hey, look, we have so many cool stuff, it's so easy to develop software in Property Finder, so you may join us. So talent acquisition is also a good part that comes with the platform. So how do we build a platform? There are several steps we did. At first, as I said, we could not really start or generate or build a new service. And because we have chosen the Golang as a main backend language, we decided to create a Golang service template. I know there are some Java developers among you, and you have a Spring as a framework. So the first step could have skipped if we were writing in Java, but since Golang has a couple of frameworks, they're not mature enough, we decided to go with our customer. Mainly because we have several use cases and we wanted to have an option to continuously improve it in a way that Property Finder needs. So we built some sort of a template that could have been used by anyone, and they don't need to do a very basic setup for the service, but at the same time it took several stages of application lifecycle more seriously, and we decided, let us do it as a libraries, and let us give an opportunity even for older services to be able to slowly migrate to that new reality of Property Finder, which is the platform-based. So there are three main libraries that we have today. One is configuration, and we have a very specific use case around configuration because we need to support not only multi-environment but also multi-country configuration, which required us to build a custom, let's say, config builder based in Viper. If you're familiar with the Golang, Viper, one of the most popular configuration tools. We have our own Go SRE library, which basically helps us in a unified way to have a logger, which is used everywhere. Tracing provider, we use OpenTelemetry, which is the latest standard for the tracing in general. And when you have an OpenTelemetry, you are not really bound to any third party. Like it was before, and it's still in older services. We use Datadog SDK, which is based on OpenTracing. OpenTracing today is a duplicated standard for the tracing, and at the same time, having Datadog SDK as a main source is not a bad thing, but still, you're kind of highly coupled with the provider, which is not great when you have a lot of things and you can make a decision to migrate to somewhere else. Also, as I said, we continuously improve our SRE, so except logging and tracing, we do develop custom things to make things easier for device. For example, one of the cool things that we developed in the last quarter are default HTTP alerts. I'll show them later, but briefly, you just need to write 2 lines in your YAML configuration, which says alerts source HTTP. There's 3 words, and our automation will automatically create for you the data.monitor that will be able to send the messages to the Slack, and you'll see alerts there. And with SHERKHAN, so we've seen also a lot of services that could have been replaced by a newer version without gracefully shutting down and waiting for all requests to process. So that was an important part too. And going from the backend purely and from the services, there's also an important part from our DevOps day. We needed to have a unified deployment chart to deploy in a similar way all the applications that we have. Even though we tried to do it for the Golang services, it's a language agnostic thing. So as I said, we deployed to the Kubernetes cluster, and we developed some sort of a chart that we use as a library for our Helm, and it deploys to all environments, which is development stage in production, in a very similar way. So we know if run service is successfully deployed using this unified deployment chart, all the services that use the same chart will be deployed in the same manner effectively. And if something goes wrong everywhere. That's a bad thing about it. But if everything works right, everything works right for everything as well. And the last but not least, automated infrastructure as code. I think most or some of you heard about Terraform or Terraform similar solutions. So we're going to speak about infrastructure as a code a bit in the next slide. Briefly, how it works. If yesterday DevOps and administrators, system administrators, needed to go directly through SSH to production and let's say start a new PostgreSQL database or MySQL database or manually administrate different resources, in the new world, in 2023, I think it becomes a standard where DevOps are more like developers, where they write some sort of a code. It can be either Terraform or Ansible or Chef, Puppet, even AWS CloudFormation. And they can apply the code which says, I need a MySQL database. It's very declarative, not as simple as SQL, but still very declarative. You pick a provider, let's say AWS, you say, I want to have a database in AWS, you apply it, it will connect to your AWS account. Terraform has its own engine, and it effectively deploys the database for you. But again, we'll take one step further, and we decided, what if we could automate that? You probably think, do we need a DevOps at this point? I don't know, a bit. So what we did, we took that idea of writing the code and we said, why the robot cannot write that Terraform code? So we prepared some templates. If you're familiar with Go template, I mean, not our template, but the templating language of the Go, or you ever wrote an integration for emails, you probably know you can write a text file, mostly for emails it's HTML, and you can insert some variables into that. So we take the same idea and apply it for the Terraform files, where To deploy a MySQL database for a specific service, we effectively need a name as reliable and maybe a resources that needed if we want to customize the, let's say, number of CPUs or RAM needed for the database. So we prepared those templates for specific use cases. Again, databases, cache, ECR, which is Docker repos, and we put it into our service, which is called Service Collector. Service Collector is an orchestrator in our infrastructure that automates resource provisioning and service registration, and it also has an integration with Git, with GitHub, and it can commit into its own repo. So what happens when we register a service through Service Collector API, it can see that your service has MySQL dependencies, and it automatically renders the template, the Terraform template for you, just like here. Instead of DevOps, the robot or service writes that code. It saves it because it has a GitHub integration in its own repo under the specific folder for service, and it applies the Terraform script that eventually deploys the resource to the cloud. Yeah. Understanding all that crazy things, you could ask yourself, how can I do it? And I'd say there are several steps that you may and you need to do. The very first thing, do you see that guy who is DevOps? Please ask for his phone number. He needs to be your friend. You need to have a DevOps in your team to really make a cool automation around service provisioning, and the platform in general requires a DevOps at some point, even though you can start without one, but it's always better to have DevOps in your team. The second is start with what you have. I wouldn't say you need to use a Golang to really build a platform. If you use Java, JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, whatever, think about how you can find a most common use cases, as I mentioned, something that usually makes your PM frustrated about some tech setup, and think how you can make it so common that everybody can use, common solutions for such use cases. Heterogeneity is slightly a hard word for a very simple thing. If you have a lot of different stacks in your company, let's say, and I've seen this in my career, you use PHP, Go, JavaScript, Haskell, Rust, and you're a team of 3 developers, it's probably not a good situation to be in. It's really hard to keep up with all the languages you have. So I'd say try to formate a smaller team, speak with the most skilled guys in your company, understand what at least you guys want to pick, and start building a common or generic solutions around the stack that you've chosen. It was really hard to move the company from PHP to Golang, because for a PM it's really not understandable. Why do we need to use a new language when we can go to the monolithic application and just write a couple of codes or a couple of APIs and we'll be good to go? So ideally, if you want to promote, and this is additional hint for guys who are really about the platform, if you want to promote some new language in a company, you need to be smart about it. And you need to make things in your company in such a way that it will be so easy to start a new application using new approaches or new language that there shouldn't be a question really, and your PM ideally shouldn't really care because she or he shouldn't see a difference. Fourth, build values in it. It's related to the second one. So you start whatever you have, and you start slowly building things that is relevant for you. Even in Java or in the more mature worlds of the programming languages, you still have so many libraries that you can pick And it will be really hard when we have one team who uses OpenTelemetry, the second team uses OpenTracing, the third team doesn't know what traces are. So I say try to make opinionated choices that will benefit your company in the long run and stick with it. Sometimes you need to describe to people why you've chosen something, and you guys, as I said, will need to sit together and discuss. Not every time, even though sometimes we do it, but not every time you can just make a decision and everybody will be happy about it. Try to speak with people, and we're coming to the fifth point. Embrace contributions and grow together. You'll be surprised how many people actually are genuinely interested about developing a library or something that can benefit a company, even though they, let's say, never had an experience of an open source contributions, or they maybe even a junior developer. We have several success stories among our junior developers where they really helped us to develop one or other feature in the platform, even though it can be not as big as something that senior developer would do in the platform. It's still a really good environment, and the team formation to be in is something that can make building a platform is actually a journey that can make your developers happier, not only for those who will use the tools, but also for those people who will build it. Because if you guys will formate a team, you'll go through the very interesting journey where you probably never been. So try to follow those hints. Yet our soup or our results, what we got. So first of all, I'll need to say that we went, if you remember the very first challenge that we had, we went from days to weeks for one service to be deployed. From that point to 15 minutes from not having a service at all to having it in production. How we do it? As I said, we have a service template, but again, we are continuously improving. We have our own CLI that can help a developer based on our template generate a new service with its own name. People can pick in the CLI as in a menu what they need, like I need a MySQL, I need a Memcache. We also support several protocols, HTTP and gRPC. We're HTTP first, but we're slowly moving towards gRPC, and it's a really interesting protocol to look into. It can give you more performance. Today we have 16 apps registered with Service Collector. As you remember, Service Collector is our, let's say, database and orchestrator for infrastructure automation. 32 of those are in fully automated infrastructure. What does it mean? It means basically that DevOps team and platform team takes care of all infrastructure, almost infrastructure related stuff for a team that uses the solutions provided by the platform team. 30 of those in the Go template, why 30, not 32, because we have two front-end applications using the same unified Helm chart that deploys their service to Kubernetes cluster. Everything else are legacy applications that should have been registered in Service Collector for the sake of keeping the list and at the same time deploying like atomic PR environments to test in an isolated environment. Yeah, and we'll have a engine or a tool that can help us to continuously improve our service reliability solutions. So before we go to the big slide, let me show you the right side of the slide. So at the very top you see Service Collector committing in its own repo, Service Collector auto commit. That's when I spoke about the Terraform, that basically what happens. It generates the Terraform files and it commits into itself. We have most of our platform solutions are configured by the YAML files that is related to your service Helm chart. So basically we have additional column, let's say, called service meta information, where we describe what service needs. And the good example is for when we needed a memcache, we just wrote, I have a dependency and the wizard should be memcached. Service collector reads that YAML file, understands that for example, my team needs a memcached, and renders the Terraform file where we have a template prepared for a memcache, auto-commits in and of itself, and declares it to AWS. So basically, today in Property Finder, for you and your service to have a memcache, you need to write 2 lines, even 1 line of code, and you'll have memcached in production. That's what is really powerful. And again, as I said, when we need like say default alerts for the HTTP as the main transport, we just write alert source HTTP. Service collector again reads it. It has an integration with Datadog. So at the end of the day, you get an automatic setup through your Slack channel where Datadog starts sending you alerts if, in our case, you have more than 3 standard deviations for your 500 errors, which helps a lot. When you have it automatically, it just boosts the awareness of your teams when they watch after their services. Without it, you probably could have came to that point only when something happened in production and you had an incident. Having this by default is a huge win for the company, and that's, well, I say, is being prepared for an army of engineers. At the same time, that's not all think about SRE. Every new service that is registered gets a unified dashboard by default, again, provided in the Datadog. In my case, it's one year prevention. We've built an auction-based system not so late ago. So as you can see, we see here a distribution of requests, how many requests are successful, how many requests are not. The percentile of each response family, which is 200s, 400s, 500s. We also get an automatic SLO. Remember I spoke about service level objectives. So in here we have several distributions, which is SLO for the past week, SLO for the past months, and SLO for the past quarter. And we can see that because the application is new, we just released it, we had several problems at the start with our SLO, but we became better. We also tried to write all the features in the README, and I needed to mention in the goals, as I said, we support open telemetry tracing, which you can configure if you want, but it's globally provided to you. You just need to write one line to register it. Logger has the same thing. Our main transport is HTTP, but we support gRPC as well, and we try to promote gRPC in the company. And we continue to develop our SRE solutions, so we have a package called Boilerplate, where you basically say boilerplate register, and it sets up for you tracer logger and profiler, which helps you to see profiles of your application and if your application consumes resources in an effective way. Not only that, we also try to help DevOps as much as we can as engineers, and we do from time to time develop applications where are highly integrated with Slack. So we do Slack apps where, for example, we have an info inspector, which is Robocop. What it does, it has a set of integrations with Datadog, and it's some sort of a health checker for our infrastructure. It sends periodic reports about what happens with our infrastructure, how many logs we have, if everything is good, let's see, how many traces, and we can continuously improve that app. Because actually it's, again, something that is installed in the service collector and connected to the Slack. We have a Slack channel called DevOps requests, So we had an additional use case where people tend to ask for resources before the automation days. People were asking for resources in that Slack channel, and we noticed that a lot of people asking for resources at the same day that we needed. So they were like, my PM just told me I need to develop a new feature, I need a MySQL database now. The DevOps team were like, I have 5 years. So as I said, when we see such cases, we try to proactively solve it, and we have additional thing or additional bot called resource planner, which is an automation around asking for resources up front. You still can manually ask for a resource if it's not covered by the automation from the platform team. What are our next steps? So we have actually a lot of plans, but I'd say for this year it's mostly front-end applications and building. We do have some front-end applications in the platform unified chart, but it's still not fully covered. We need to develop server management UI where my developers can go pick their team, see what services belongs to the team. Resource quotation, today we have only, let's say, small amount of resources dedicated to every auto-deployed resource. We want to develop some more drivers for databases and caches, which will be highly traced, gRPC adaptation, some automation around gRPC, and better developer experience. We want to have more automated alerts over default metrics, not only for HTTP. And at the end of the day, it will be really cool if we had a performance testing automated when you can just apply for performance testing overnight, and we could have call your APIs during the night and stress test your service. That's our plans, and now I'm ready for your questions.
Thanks so much for your presentation. Guys, if you have any question, please raise your hand and I'm gonna give you a microphone.
It's bad. They can eat and it's fine. Well, no, I have to eat.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. And I want to ask the front-end technologies you use, and what are you planning to for next steps? Do you tell about lately? And I want to ask detail of the, what is your expectation or something like that, front-end technologies or
More than more. Interesting. Still not today. Okay. Thank you.
In terms of platform, I'd say we still need to give front-end engineers like a bridge to all the platform solutions we have. We also need to develop a couple of libraries that will, let's say, standardize the logging for SSR applications. Because when you have an SSR application, you also have a server that can log something, and we can boost the performance over the SSR connected to the backend in the local cluster. There are a lot of things that we can do to boost the B2C performance that we have today. On the B2B side, we have a new thing called Reader, which is third party. We use it to develop the administration tools in a very fast manner. It has its own like a set of components. We try to unify components basically and have a standardized, even like a PF design kit. I'm not super well involved in front-end because I'm a back-end engineer, but I know from the front-end guys that they also have the front-end chapter or front-end platform that continuously works and improves the front-end developer experience, and they work with us around the infrastructure automation.
Any other question?
So right now it's really kind of a heaven for developers because they can have any resource they want basically, which is nice, but it's also not really nice for the company because they can be a lot of resources they ask but they don't use. Right now we are only trusting the developers that they would use only that what they need. But it's human error, it's open to human error, so can we automate a way to automatically delete the resources that are not used that much?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that crossed my mind in the last months. Yes, we will need to have metrics on the hosts of resources that we have, and if there's no traffic, let's say for past 90 days, we still need to have a long enough period to say that it's not used. So I pick a grocery list, and then yeah, we will have an automatic run, let's say cleanup for our infrastructure to not have a high bill on AWS at the end of the day.
Last question if you have, guys.
Don't ask how I will.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation, and I'd like to ask big applause for SHERKHAN.
Thank you.
Let's please limit the property finder and the booth in the sponsorship area, and if you have future question, you can ask him directly.
Yep, come to our booth. We'll be there, ready to answer your questions.
All right, thank you so much again, and see you on the next session.
See you.